So we've got a cherub. Seraphim is another one. I think there are a few more, but but we're going to take a look and see what these actually look like. In some of the Renaissance paintings, what is the thing that hovers over the head of an angel? A halo. Um, what is that movie? Besides the halo, what is it that an angel has to be able to earn? Their wings. And what do they do to earn those wings? Well, no, there was it's, most of them in here are going to know it when I say it. It's an older movie with, Jimmy Stewart. No. A Wonderful Life. It's a Wonderful Life. You have to do good deeds. And usually there's like a certain number of good deeds, but every story is different on how many good deeds. And so I think even in that one, I don't remember the character's name or the actor's name, but the guy that played the angel, he had to do a good deed. He had to help Jimmy Stewart out, his character, in order to earn his wings. There's usually also an event that happens when an angel earns their wings, according to the stories. Does anybody know what that is? A bell rings or chimes. I think that's true even in the movie It's a Wonderful Life. When you hear a bell ring, an angel gets their wings. But we don't see anything like that in the Bible. There's no description of how they get their wings. We just know some of them have wings. And they don't have to earn wings, according to what we read. So let's take a look at this first one. In heavenly form, we're on the second section that says the form of angels. We have cherubim and seraphim. And let's look at some of these verses. We'll take these a little bit at a time because these go into descriptions of what these look like. If I remember correctly, and it's not listed here, but in Genesis, what was left outside of the Garden of Eden? There was a flaming sword, and I think it was a cherubim. Yeah, let me see. We'll go ahead and go to Genesis there. I believe that's going to be Genesis 3. Yeah. Verse 24, the very last one. So he drove out the man, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword, which turned every way to keep the way of the tree of life. I don't believe that on earth that we will ever find the Garden of Eden. But think about it. If you were able to find it, just based on this, and again, I don't think the cherubim look like the cute, chubby little babies that we hear the description of. We'll find a description here in just a little bit. But if you found the Garden of Eden, do you think you'd want to try to get past these guards and get in there? I wouldn't either. Just a flaming sword that's floating there. What's interesting is these descriptions that are given, they're kind of poetic language, especially when we get to the description of what these angels look like. We have to remember that these are descriptions that are given by God, but they're written by men. And so they're written in words that they understand. We'll understand that a little bit more when we get to Ezekiel. But it's not 100% what they look like. It's a way that they are able to describe it based on what they're looking at. And the only descriptions we have, the true descriptions of what an angel looks like, is from the visions that the prophets have. typically, what did an angel look like when they came down here to earth and appeared before men? They look like men, each and every one of us. In fact, in the New Testament, it tells us that often people entertained angels unaware. They didn't know that they were angels because they just looked like men. If we saw an angel in its true form, it would be terrifying. We would not want to. It would not be nearly as bad as if we saw God in his true form, because no man can lay eyes on God and survive. But angels are heavenly beings. They were created for heaven. They were created specifically for worshiping God and being his messengers. And so what that true form looks like, I don't think we'll ever fully comprehend.
The descriptions of would be scary. I mean, the way it's described in the Bible.
Yeah. To me, when these prophets are describing them, it's like when a witness is being asked to sit down with a sketch artist, and they're trying to remember what they saw, and all of that trauma is coming back to them. And they're remembering certain things, but they're remembering with that trauma in mind, because they literally saw, whether it was in their mind or saw it right in front of them in a vision, what this thing looked like, and it would have been terrifying. And to have to remember, and with the kind of words that they had, that would be kind of hard to be able to put into description, put into words. I wouldn't want to do it, because I think these things would be pretty terrifying. Let's go take a look at some of these verses here from this number 1 on the form of angels. So let's start with Exodus 25. And just see what kind of descriptions we can get here. And I think we'll find that they don't look like the Renaissance drawings that we get. Exodus 25, beginning in verse 18. And we're going to verse 20 here. And thou shalt make 2 cherubims of gold of beaten work. Shalt thou make them in the 2 ends of the mercy seat, and make 1 cherub on the one end, and the other cherub on the other end. Even of the mercy seat shall ye make the cherubims on the 2 ends thereof. And the cherubims shall stretch forth their wings on high, covering the mercy seat with their wings, and their faces shall look one to another. Toward the mercy seat shall the faces of the cherubims be. So they have faces, they have wings, and I would expect that their wingspans were fairly long, because the ark was long. And you have one on one end and one on the other end, and they're supposed to be stretching their wings out towards each other. And so you've got wingtip to wingtip. Probably the closest idea that we have that would be kind of accurate is if we've seen Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. They had a depiction of what they considered cherubims on top of the ark. And they had 2 little, I think they were sphinx bodies, one on each end, and then you had the wings spread out, and they kind of stretched over the ark. And so I would imagine, again, it's kind of hard to tell with this here, but I would imagine that these cherubim wings would have to be fairly long in order to stretch the entire span. But again, they're making it work for this ark. They would have to know what cherubims look like in order to make this. Today, we don't necessarily know. All we have is the descriptions that we're about to read. But they would had to have known what this looked like. God was helping them all along the way in everything they made for the temple.
I think about Abraham when he came to his house.
Mm-hmm.
That was just, according to the scriptures, ordinary people.
They were, yep. In that case, they were. Here it says they have wings. People don't have wings. So what these cherubims look like, I don't know, as far as their bodies. But they did have wings.
You're thinking about on the Garden of Eden.
Well, this one is the Ark of the Covenant.
Yes.
They were putting it on top, the lid to the Ark of the Covenant, the mercy seat. So what their bodies look like here, that we don't have a description, but they at least had wings. Okay, let's go to 1 Kings 6. Steve, could you get that one for us there?
26.
Yeah, you can do 26 and 27 there.
The height of one cherubim was 10 cubits, and so was the other cherub. Then he set the cherubim inside the inner room, and they stretched out their wings of the cherubim so that the wing of one touched one wall, and the wing of the other cherub touched the other wall. And their wings touched each other in the middle of the room.
Okay. Now, I think the only thing that we can probably take from this is the wings, because the height and how far they had to stretch has to do with how big the room was, and they were filling it with certain measurements. But I don't think we can get the true size of what a cherubim or a cherub, singular, was in this case. That's what I think. What do you guys think there?
This would come out 15 feet tall.
Yeah. I think they were just trying to fit it in the room. That's what I'm thinking here. But I think the only thing we can get from the description there is the wings. All right. Let's go ahead and just see what these have. We've got plenty of time here. So let's go to 1 Kings 8. Renati, do you want to get this next one here? 6 and 7, please.
Then the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of the Lord to its place, into the inner sanctuary of the temple, to the most holy place, under the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim spread their two wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubim overshadowed the ark and its poles.
Okay. Again, that's all we have here so far. Let's go ahead and skip to Isaiah. Isaiah 6. I think Ezekiel is going to be the interesting description there. Luke, are you ready there? Isaiah 6 and verse 2. Okay. Yep, this one is a seraphim.
Above the stood the seraphims, each one had 6 wings. With twain he covered his face, and with twain he covered his feet, and with twain he did fly.
Okay. So it has 6 wings, and it can fly. So how many wings did the cherub, or the cherubim, plural, have? 2 wings. And the seraphim has 6 wings.
We know it has the face and feet.
Face and feet. So right now, not too scary. I mean, yeah.
What I was reading was the first chapter of Ezekiel, and it has a lot of descriptions for him.
And that is where we're going next. So let's go ahead and get there. Ezekiel chapter 1.
From verses 4 and, yeah, 4 to 15. We don't really say names of different angels. If we will, I was looking at the Jewish folklore, the different kinds of angels and descriptions.
Yeah, if you've already got that, you can go ahead and read there. Go ahead and read 1 through 6. We'll back up here.
It came to pass in the 13th year, in the 4th month, in the 5th day of that month, as I was among the captives by the river Chebar, that the heavens were opened, and I saw visions of God. On the 5th day of the month, which was the 5th year of Jehoiakim's captivity, the word of the Lord came expressly unto Ezekiel, the priest, the son of Buzi, the land of Chaldeans by the river Chebar. And the hand of the Lord was there upon him. I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud, and a fire unfolding itself. And a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof as the color of amber. Out of the midst of the fire, also out of the midst thereof came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. And every one had 4 faces, and every one had 4 wings.
Okay. Let's keep going. Let's see, verse 7. And their feet were straight feet. Their sole of their feet was like the sole of a calf's foot, and they sparkled like the color of burnished brass. And they had the hands of a man under their wings on their 4 sides, and they 4 had their faces and their wings. Their wings were joined one to another. They turned not when they went every one straight forward. As for the likeness of their faces, they 4 had the faces of a man, and the face of a lion on the right side, and they 4 had the face of an ox on the left side. They 4 also had the face of an eagle. Thus were their faces, and their wings were stretched upward. 2 wings of every one were joined one to another, and 2 covered their bodies. And they went every one straight forward whither the Spirit was to go. They went, and they turned not when they went. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like burning coals of fire, and like the appearance of lamps. It went up and down among the living creatures, and the fire was bright, and out of the fire went forth lightning, and the living creatures ran and returned as the appearance of a flash of lightning. Now as I beheld the living creatures, behold, one wheel upon the earth by the living creatures with his 4 faces. The appearance of the wheels and their work was like unto the color of beryl, and they 4 had one likeness, and their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel. When they went upon their 4 sides, and they turned not when they went. As for their rings, they were so high that they were dreadful, and their rings were full of eyes round about them 4. And when the living creatures went, the wheels went by them. And when the living creatures were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up. Whithersoever the Spirit was to go, they went thither was their spirit to go, and the wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. And when those went, these went, and when those stood, these stood. And when those were lifted up from the earth, the wheels were lifted up over against them, for the spirit of the living creature was in the wheels. And the likeness of the firmament upon the heads of the living creatures was as the color of the terrible crystal stretched forth over their heads above. And under the firmament were their wings straight, the one toward the other. Every one had 2 which covered on this side, and every one had 2 which covered on that side their bodies. And when they went, I heard the noise of their wings like the noise of great waters, as the voice of the Almighty, the voice of speech, as the noise of an host. When they stood, they let down their wings. And there was a voice from the firmament that was over their heads when they stood and had let down their wings. And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it. And I saw as the color of amber, as the appearance of fire round about within it, from the appearance of his loins even upward, and from the appearance of his loins even downward I saw, as it were, the appearance of fire, and it had brightness round about. As the appearance of the bow that is in the cloud in the day of rain, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. And when I saw it, I fell upon my face, and I heard a voice of one that spake. So not only here do we get a description of what these creatures look like, but we get a description of how they move, how they behave, how they act. Again, this is kind of poetic language, but it's more of describing from using the best wording that I think he can use to describe it. We've got him using animals like lion. He uses man. He uses chariot wheels, or just says wheels, but that was kind of chariots then. And he uses different stones like beryl and sapphire. He talks about burning coals. This could have just been how the light was around them, shining about them. This is one way that the artists from the Renaissance kind of take this, where you kind of see that glow around them, but it's a little bit different. What do you think about this description? Is this one a little bit more scary than what we've seen so far?
Scary.
It calls them living creatures. How do we know for sure they're angels?
Well,
How do we not know there's an angel and there's just living creature that has all this? That's always.
again, angels are created just like everything else. And that could have been a description that the prophet used in order to describe them, because he goes into lion and man. That
A lot of Ezekiel is visions of the
it's true. It is a vision, and so it could be something that's describing something else. Like he says in 28, so was the appearance of the brightness round about. This was the appearance of the likeness of the glory of the Lord. So he's telling that this was a vision of God's glory. Yep.
Using Jewish folklore and all that for names, the angels depicted with thrones above their heads, images of thrones. There's only four of those. Those would be the archangels: Michael, Gabriel, Uriel, and Raphael. The chariots, or the winged ones, one wings chariots, are open. They guard the throne of God, and cherubim is the four-faced with the hoods, and a seraphim is one that sits with 20 covers, the body, 20 covers, and 20 fly. That is from the Jewish folklore.
Well, you know, in Revelations, you have four creatures,
Mm-hmm.
all before the throne of God.
Right. Surrounding the throne.
Yes.
Seraphim, praise, cherubim, messengers, and open blood.
Yep.
It's like they all have their place in one light in heaven, and they're different for a reason, they all have their certain place that what they're supposed to be doing.
Right. And that's where he mentioned archangel. That is a level of rank, where arch would be the chief. So we know that there is a ranking system. So that is a good question. Is this truly talking about angels here? Or is this something else? Because this doesn't actually say that it's angels. It just says that it came from the clouds. Verse 4, and I looked, and behold, a whirlwind came out of the north, a great cloud and a fire, enfolding itself, and a brightness was about it, and out of the midst thereof as the color of amber, and of the midst of the fire.
In 5 it says that also from within it came the likeness of 4 living creatures.
Mm-hmm.
The likeness, so Ezekiel's all part of that
Yep.
book.
Yeah, it never actually says that this is cherubim or seraphim. It never names a specific type of angel. And it says it comes from this whirlwind. In verse 1, it says the heavens were opened, and I saw a vision. But that doesn't mean that these creatures came from heaven. It just means the vision came from heaven. So we have often attributed this
And like
to
you said,
angels.
they see the vision and they interpret it in their terms, kind of like we can't imagine a lot of things because we think things on our terms.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to do.
Yep.
And it says the likeness of a man and the likeness of the creature.
Right.
That's that.
So this one we kind of have to leave open. I'm not going to nail this down. But so far, all we have seen is the ones that do say that they are a type of angel, they have wings. There's multiple wings. There's not one. Cherubim have 2. Seraphim have 6. They are. It doesn't describe the bodies when it describes the wings. But when they appear to men, they appear as men.
Probably where the pictures come from, men, of course, there's the one with wings.
Mm-hmm.
That might be where all this, where it originates when man put it from here to
Yeah. And the only, well, there's a couple of explanations. One, as far as putting the cherubim on the ark, they would have had to have seen it or just gotten the description from God. But we have no evidence that says that regular men, even the priests, saw these beings.
well, God told him specifically how to make
Mhm.
this.
Yeah. That's, as far as right now, that's all we know that they had. As far as literally seeing them or even in a vision, we don't know that the priests got that. The text doesn't say that. Now, the prophets, like Ezekiel, we know that they were able to see visions of these things. But as far as men, most common men very well entertained angels and never even knew it because they just appeared as men. Abraham knew that he was with angels because God told him. And Moses may have known it because he was writing all this down in the first 5 books. And again, that was through revelation. A lot of these men that wrote these things down, they understood some things, but they didn't understand everything. Even Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, the ones who were writing there that were God's apostles, they didn't understand everything. They didn't understand the true nature of what the kingdom was. So when it comes to the form of angels, not all of them understood it. One thing we do know, and this is mentioned in the Old Testament and the New Testament, is angels were invisible to man until God allowed them to be visible. I don't think it's marked on here, but in the Old Testament, when it refers to God's host or to the Lord's host, it's referring to his army. And we have that kind of depiction of the mountainside, and God tells them they were worried and concerned about this battle, and he allows them to have their eyes open, and they can look across this mountainside, and they are now able to see the Lord's host, and it's angels. Now, how they appeared to them, we don't know. We just know that they were able to see the Lord's host, and they knew that God was with them. So they are invisible until they are allowed to be seen. I've got a reference here, Colossians 1, verse 16. We can take a look at that. It mentions their invisibility. Colossians 1, verse 16. I'm not sure on this one. Let's see. For by him were all things created that are in heaven and that are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him. That one doesn't specifically say anything about angels, but we know from the Old Testament that angels are invisible because of his host being invisible. Okay, so I printed this out so that you guys could go through this and look through this some more on your own. You can add some notes to it for your personal study. We can go back through different sections of this another time. But anybody have any more questions or comments before we wrap it up this morning? Okay. All right, then we will call it for this morning.